Okay. Excuse me. We're going to be learning the Maamar of Lech Lecha, Cheshvan 1970s, end of 77. The Rebbe said from his room. It's kind of a continuation of the Maamar we learned last week on Shabbos Noach. So let's bring up the text. Again, it's a short Maamar. We should be able to finish it in a day or two. Hold on. Actually, that's not sharing. Hold on. Oh, okay. So the Maamar says like this. This is based on the Likutei Torah as well, like last week. Likutei Torah, sorry, Torah of this week's parsha. So the Rebbe quotes the verse, opens up. It says, "Vayom Hashem el Avram Lech Lecha mi artzecha miladetecha mi beis avicha." He should leave his land, his birthplace, in the house of his father, and la'aretz, the land that I'll show you. It's working properly. Hold on. So it says like this. So to the land I'm going to show you. You do it, it's known. There's two ideas of Lech Lecha. Again, this is based on the Torah of the week. The first idea is Pirush Aleph. The first idea is Shahalicha de Lech Lecha. What does it mean? Avram's going. Avram is told to go. He milmayla lamata, from above down, meaning that from his great ascended level, from his higher level, he has to go down to this world. The Kamavor b'Torah, as the Alter Rebbe explains in Torah. Sha'avram, who's Avram? The God says that Avram, you're talking about before he has the haste. He's not Avraham, it's Avram. Has to go, Lech Lecha, he has to go. So Avram is made up of the words Avram, elevated father. Which, what's that mean? So the Torah explains it's the Seichel Hanela Mikol Rayin. It's the intellect that's hidden from any idea. Meaning, what does it mean hidden from any idea? So the Rebbe explains in the brackets. We know in general, Chacham itself is an undeveloped or clear idea. The Chachma is the spark, the inspiration. Bina has to broaden the understanding of Chachma. The Chachma on its own, like in the name of Hashem, the Yud is Chachma, the Hey is Bina. So the Yud is the dot. You expand the Yud in the Hey, and now the idea becomes understood. And it's a process. It has to be a vacuum, so to say, from the essence of the Chachma, in order for there to be space for the Bina to analyze it and explain it and elaborate, etc. If you just stay in Chachma, you have like an inspiration of an idea, but it's not developed, it's not explained, it's not clear to the person, surely not to the person who's trying to receive the Chachma. So that's in general. Chachma is not it's just a nekuda, like the Yud is the nekud, is the dot. Now, what is Avram? It's in Chachma itself. He says it's right. It's higher than Chachma on its own, and wisdom on its own. Ki Chachma, wisdom, although that Chachma, wisdom, is the beginning of all the internal qualities of the person or strengths of the person. So nevertheless, he bechinas giloy, at the end of the day, it's a revelation. It's an idea that hasn't been clear yet or analyzed or broadened or explained. It hasn't gone through the process of bina, lahavin davar mitech davar, to understand something from within this inspiration, so to say. But that's chachma. But it's nevertheless, it's the Bereshis Hagilui. It's the beginning of revelation. Bereshis Bara Likim. Creation started with Bereshis Bechachmasa, like it says. But what's of Avram, Seichel HaNelam Mikol Rayin? It's Nelam, it's hidden. Mashenkin Avram, who Seichel HaNelam Mikol Rayin. It's a hidden idea that can't have any explanation. It's the Seichel before it has any kind of revelation. It's Nelam. By definition, the difference between Seichel HaNelam and Chachma is that Seichel HaNelam is concealed, it hasn't been revealed yet, and Chachma is the beginning of revelation. The Rebbe doesn't go into explaining it in detail, but the Rebbe says that this idea of of Seichel Hanel Mikol Ryan, difference from Chachma. The Tzemach explains on the Torah there's different levels of the initiation of the wisdom and how it goes into the process until eventually it gets explained into Bina. So what does God tell Avram? If Avram is Seichel Hanel Mikol Ryan, means he's the intellect. It's almost, and what does this mean in Avodah? This means this sort of say this intuition of knowledge, but you can't have any. It's hidden from any rayon, any explanation. There's nothing you could say, so to say. It's like you know something. So V'yem Hashem al Avram, so God tells Avram, who's Avram Seichel Hanelim, this hidden intellect. Lech Lecha mi'artcha. You need a descent. You can't remain in this status of rum, of disconnect, of elevated. Av again is Chachma. In how Chachma is rum is elevated within itself. It means with no intention to be revealed. And God says, no, Lech Lecha, you have to go. Where do you have to go? Mi'artcha, from your place. Shiatzi oirei hanelim, the light that is concealed has to be legili, has to be revealed. The Yumashach Malchut has to come from above the Mata. Ad, how far do you have to bring this idea, this Chachma? You have to push yourself. You're going against, so to say, the gravity of Avram. Avram wants to be, he's hidden within himself. Doesn't even have, it's not even the beginning of a gili of revelation. God says, no. Lech lecha mi'aretzecha, go from your comfort zone, el ha'aretz, all the way down, not just to any place, but all the way down to the bottom, to the earth. Bechinas Malchus, which is the lowest of the 10 qualities. So you have Chachma, and here you have, within Chachma itself, this is the Seichel Hanelim Mikol Ryan. This is not the Chachma the way it starts in Revelation, which inspires the being of understanding. But it's the Chachma on its own, without any intention to be explained. Hanelim, it's concealed in Mikol Ryan from any idea. And where do you have to go? All the way down to Malchus, which Malchus is in the Midas, for instance, that's speech, communication. Not only does it have to be developed, a feeling within you, bring it all the way down to Malchus, which in the worlds, that means from the world of Atzilus, go into the world of separation, which eventually trickles down to our world of creation, which is the world of creation to the world of formation to the world of action. So he goes, go down to Malchus, and then Hashem adds, Lech lecha mi'aretzecha, el ha'aretz, to the land which is Malchus, asher hareka, that I'm going to show you. So seemingly the pasuk is clear. Hashem tells Avram, leave Terach's home, leave your Ur-Kasdim, and go leave Charan, and go to Eretz Canaan, to the land that I'm going to show you. It means the pasuk is simple. But here the Rebbe says like this: what does it mean to the land Asher Areka? And this itself, there's two explanations. So we're within the first explanation of Lech Lecha, meaning you go from Avram, from an elevated state, down to reveal yourself. What does it mean, Areka? So Aleph Kipshute, the simple explanation. Shareka Koyal Oretz, Bechinas Malchus, that God's going to show that you're going to be revealed in the world of Malchus. Sham Malchus Bechinas Alma Diskali, because Malchus, when you go to the world of the place of Malchus, which again, that's a space of communication. Speech is in Malchus. That's how, so to say, the king is a king within himself. When he communicates to the people, that's the communication, that's the kingship. I mean, otherwise the king totally has no connection to the people. Way more elevated than the people. How does the king, what forces, so to say, the king to communicate, to have to do with the people? Is because he's king, he has an obligation to his people. So Malchus, so to say, drags that there should be the communication. So Asher Reka means you have to go down to Malchus. You go reveal yourself. And that's what it means, that I'm going to show you the Areka, which was from the word Ria, to see that you're going to be seen. That the Avram will be seen through Malchus into communication, from the world of Atzilus into the world of Ria, bringing godliness down into this world. So the Areka, although it's not so much like a simple explanation that the land that God's going to show Avram, but that the land is going to see Avram. Asher Areka. So you see, the land that you'll be seen. Well, that's the first explanation. Second explanation is God is telling Avram what's in it for you. You want to understand why am I telling you Lech Lecha? It's not just that you should go down and reveal the Seichel Hanelim Mikol Ryan, the hidden idea that's beyond, that you don't want to even communicate. You don't even have it. There's no explanation for it. And go reveal into this world and through Malchus all the way down to this world of Asi, of action. But if you want to understand why, Asher Areka, because then you're going to become who you need to be. you're going to see who you are. You'll find out who you are by going out there and revealing yourself. Pirish Beish Ve'areka Koyal Avram. It goes on Avram himself. That Bechina Seichel Anel Mikol Rayin. Era ve'egale oischa b'atzmacha. I'm going to show you, Era, I'm going to show, ve'egale, I'm going to reveal yourself to you. If you want to know your potential, you want to understand your abilities, you want to understand the talents you have, is only when you're going to go out. If you're going to stay within yourself, in your own mind, in your own ideas, without communicating and giving over to others, bringing it down to this world, you're not going to really understand who you are. If you want to understand who you are, you have to interact, you have to communicate, you have to bring it down, from above down. You want to understand your character, your entity, your identity, you have to do Lech Lecha. So the Lech Lecha is to bring himself down. So there's a benefit, of course, to the communication itself. So to say to the worlds that are getting the revelation of Avram. And Asher Areka is not just to show you where you have to go, that Malchus is going to reveal the hidden parts of Avram, but also you're going to understand who Avram is by revealing yourself. Only when you go out of yourself, you leave your comfort zone, you're going to find yourself. Behind that, Gam Shesfiris of Malchus Alma Diskaya. Although where you go, you're going down to the world of revelation. Not just within Malchus for the potential to communicate, but you're actually going to the world of creation, of separation. That's so separate, total other extreme from where you're at. You're Avram, you're elevated within yourself. That's how it's so concealed, it's even concealed from any even elevated explanation. There's no articulation, you can't even articulate this idea. And where are you going to? It's the highest space. But when you listen, so to say, you do the Lech Lecha, you go out of yourself. The Avram Seichel Anam Korayin Ela Orz Shareka Kipirusha Aleph. If you're going to, like the first explanation, if you're going to bring from Seichel Anam, from the elevated space all the way down to Malchus, which is the first explanation of what I'm to the place that I'm showing you, or where you'll be revealed. The Bechinas Malchus Amid is guide to the world of revelation, Katzeh Hatach, to the lowest point, versus your Avram, your essence. Then you're going to find out who you really are. You're going to find your own character. Shall Avram of Avram himself, which is the second idea, that Terach is going Avram. If you want to know who you are, you only really find yourself when you go Lech Lecha, when you leave your comfort zone. And the point is, the person would think, how could you elevate an idea that's so abstract that it has no explanation? It's so elevated, but if it stays within its own space, it doesn't mean anything. Only when you go out and you bring it down, although it's a process, and although it gets changed in the bringing it down, it's not the way it is by Avram. But nevertheless, that's a shareka. That's where you're going to find yourself. As it's explained, this all in Torah. So the Rebbe continues. So this idea, so this is all the first idea of Lech Lecha. That Avram is in a high space, and he has to go down to a low space, to the world of revelation. And in order to, when he does that, the only way he'll truly find himself is by doing that, by revealing himself. So too, this applies to every Jew. When the soul comes down to the body, just like Avram gets an elevation, Asher Areka, he finds himself by leaving his comfort zone. So too, the neshama, the soul, that's a godly entity. It comes down to this physical body, physical world, like we learned last week in the Maamar of Maamar, and going into the anxieties of this world. The elevation the soul achieves, by coming to this world, dealing with all the issues of this world, being totally disconnected from its reality of holiness, the way it is before, so to say, the neshama, the person is born. The neshama now becomes a person of movement. Lech Lecha, we go move, start moving. We know that it's brought down many times in Chassidus, that when Eliyahu Navi says, that when the soul is up in heaven, it's oimed. It's like the angels, doesn't have the ability to move. Move doesn't mean that there's no growth. Move means the ability to have proper movement, to be able to achieve things that are, so to say, out of your comfortable space. So where does Avram get to able to upgrade, so to say, to move, have a proper pace, become a mahalach? When does the neshama become a mahalach? Only when it comes down to this world, lech lecha. So the Rebbe continues, that this elevation that the soul gets, that a person may think that what gets elevated in the soul, let's say this parts of the soul that are connected to the body, but the elevated parts of the soul, that stays, that how could that get affected by coming down to this world? So just like Avram, Seichal Nel Mikol Ryan, how does he get Ereka? How does he find himself only when he reveals himself? So to the neshama, the highest points of the neshama get elevated, become a mahalach only when it comes down to this world. Even the highest levels. Even the part of the neshama, the highest of the 5 levels, called yechida, which you would think the word yachid by definition has no ability to have an elevation. It's yachid, it's one with God. How could he be elevated more than one with God? So he says, Why does it mean? What does it mean that the soul is called yechida? Because it's connected to the oneness of God. So how could there be an elevation in that? There's nothing on the other side, meaning the sides of Tuma, that are like this, and everything we have a zelumasa. In every part of a person's expression, if you have a pull towards holiness, that same struggle, the same sort of say energy that you have abilities in holiness, you can have that's the same place where you fall. And the person doesn't have, usually they go together. The same places where you have your strength is where you have your weaknesses. Because that's zelumasa. God gives a person, every person has the other side. There's the Yetzer Hara, there's the Nefesh Bahamas, there's the Koach HaTuma of impurities. But when it comes to the Yechida, there's no opposite to the Yechida. There's no, so to say, shadow of the oneness of the soul. At that level, it's only good. There's nothing in the world of Tuma, of impurity, that counters that. So then if that's the case, it's so one with Hashem, how could it be an elevation? How can we say that the entire of the neshama gets an elevation by coming down to this world? So the Rebbe continues. Nevertheless, when it does its mission, and it becomes a mahalach, it goes into this world again with all its challenges. From the highest place to the lowest place, like Avram has to go from Seichel Anel and Kol Ryan all the way to this world, to Malchut, and then back to this world. Notwithstanding, although maybe it doesn't make sense, and although seemingly it's not possible, nevertheless, even the highest parts of the soul gets an elevation. As is explained in many spaces in Chassidus. Because when the soul comes down to this world, it gets its elevation, and the Rebbe adds in the parentheses, not just any elevation, but an elevation on a much higher level. Even higher than how the soul was rooted above. And we spoke last week, and the Rebbe was trying to explain. The Rebbe was explaining that there's the koyach and the poil, that we say that there's. The Rebbe said also, we spoke last week about the Maamar Lech Lecha, the same elevation. This is a continuation. This is the next Shabbos. So the elevation that we said, how does it have, if you have a koyach, that if the neshama is already discussing with God before creation, how could it be a higher elevation? Because it's the poil. There's a difference between how the neshama actualizes its mission and its potential to actualize its mission. And that is an elevation. And that the way the soul is above in its essential connection doesn't come close to when it actualizes its mission. He says, even the way it is at its core. In many talks, when it talks about it, when a person gets called up to the Torah. So what do we call it when a person gets called up to the Torah? It's an aliyah, it's an elevation. And what is the elevation? When a person gets called up to the Torah, it elevates the entire being of the soul. All the 5 levels, meaning the nefesh, ruach, and neshama, the 3 conscious levels of the person's soul, and the chai yechida, the external, the makif, the encompassing energies of the soul. Even the level of yechida gets elevated. So we see clearly that it's possible for even the highest level of the soul to get an elevation. Which are he says, these correspond to the 3 levels of the teva, which is called tachtim, shniim, shlishim. There's the bottom of the teva. The teva is divided into 3 levels. So there's the bottom, the middle, and the higher level. And just like the ark, the entire ark gets lifted up with the flood, so too, neshama, through doing its avodah, the entire arc of the neshama, which is divided into three, which he explains of Tevis Ne'ach, that's the nefesh ruach neshama is the bottom part of the arc. The yechida is the chai is the middle part of the arc, and the yechida is the upper part of the arc. But the entire arc gets lifted up. Since it always explains when you have a lever to pick up something, a car or a building, you pick it up from the bottom, the whole building gets elevated. So he says, if you imagine a little bit we explained before last week in the Maamar of Shabbos Noach. Api Teres of Hashem, the Pasuk Boil Teva come into the Teva, and then your entire arc gets elevated. Sheinin Tevis Noach, what is the idea of the ark of Noach? Who Rebbe say that that's the lesson we have to take in our own approach to Avodas Hashem. Kol Echem Yisrael, to every Jew, Befrat la'achich Chodesh Tishrei, specifically after we're in the month of Tishrei. Shaz Maschil say that the Yaakov Halachal Darka, like we said last week, Yaakov goes out to the world. Shagam Shu Hoylech L'Darke Gam Binyani Rishus, although you're going out to the mundane, Uvdin the Chol, into weekly mundane things. Like we said, you could even fall into the anxieties of life, or specifically into the anxieties of life. Kol Tirdas HaPanasa, trying to earn a living, and not just trying to earn a living, but the anxieties of earning a living. The dogged here is the emphasis is the Tirdas. When a person finds their safe, holy space of davening and learning, not only don't you drown from the floodings of the water of the flood, at least on the contrary, that's just that you survive it. Actually, the waters themselves, it lifts up all the parts of the soul. And then here the Rebbe adds, but he did not say that we didn't see last week. That's not just the idea of get elevated for the sake of elevation. This elevation also then the teva rests, and then you're a stronger person in this continuing cycle. Moving is that from misunderstood. The fact that the soul comes down to this world and encloses itself, like we said last week, and like about the same situation of Avram going into the Maim Rabbim to the anxieties. The entire teva gets lifted up, the entire arc. Which is b'nefesh adam, nefesh ruach neshama, the lower, the conscious parts of the soul is the bottom of the arc. The chaya, which is the beginning, the more close encompassing. It means it's not a light that's conscious within the person, but it's close to consciousness. It's like closer makiv enclothement or a close kind of garment. And then you have the yechida, which is mamish, the subconscious of the soul. But everything gets elevated. Like we said by Avram, that Asher Reka, that even Seichel Hanel Mikol Ryan gets elevated. Even the highest level of Avram gets elevated, specifically gets elevated. Only by coming down to this, going Lech Lecha, going on your mission to be a Mahalik. Shaideha Lichas, you read this Avram Elaris, Bechinas Malchus, when Avram goes out to the land, which is going out to the world of communication, so what we're finding, if we wanted to ask, so is the Rebbe just taking a similar idea from last week and applying it to the next story, so to say? There's the story of the flood and the story of Avram. And the answer is really no. The difference between last week and this week is last week is within the person themselves. Within the person themselves, there's the Maim Rabbim, the struggle that you have of anxieties. And like the Rebbe says, part of the reason you have anxieties is because you don't have proper bitachon, you don't have proper trust in Hashem. But nevertheless, the anxieties which create this raging waters, this silver lining of it is that by going into the table, you have an elevation. Over here, we're talking more about this. The Avram is the difference between Avram and Noach is Noach survives, although he could get an elevation himself if it's about Noach. Avram's about how he's being effective. Lech Lecha, go out to El Eretz, go communicate this idea to someone else. Go out of your comfort zone to elevate the world. It's not about there's someone else on there's the Malchus, there's the revelation, there's something happening outside of your own life. Avram has a mission that's beyond Avram. And that's where he gets the true elevation, by going out to the world of Malchus, which is the communication, the interaction. So here he says the halich v'idis Avram l'Aretz b'chins Malchus, when Avram goes out to Malchus to change the world of separation. Shetachas the Yerida Zu, what's the purpose of this? Leah is gili b'biyah, that there should be the purpose is that there's the revelation. there's a togash here, there's an emphasis here. That what is the tachlis of Avram is not so much that what he's going to benefit. So the tachlis is gilui. You have to go out and reveal, tell the whole world there's a God in this world. In the world that's separate from God, beyond the world of creation, formation, and action specifically, where there is no clarity of God, he says, Avram goes and says, this is Kel Olam, God in the world is one. So it's about what the message of Avram, the revelation of Avram. As is known, Avram's mission was to bring godliness down into the world of separation in general, and specifically in this world, physical world. And through Avram doing Lech Lecha, it enabled and paved the path for his descendants who received the Torah to go out there and turn the physical world into a place of holiness. Our ability to go out there to start that we receive the Torah and to build the Beis Hamikdash and the tabernacle, the Mishkan, and to go out there and turn this world into Adir B'Tachtonim is because Avram went out there Lech Lecha. So that here that we're upgrading the purpose of a person. It's not just that we survive, but we find their own elevation. God is promising Avram, you're going to see yourself, but where you're going to see yourself when you're effective in the world. The Gilui, the revelation you're bringing to the world. So if you do the tachlis, and the tachlis is bring revelation to the world, then you're going to see an elevation in yourself. So the Eretz Hashem, so we're holding now, we're going to stop here. Tomorrow we finish Be'ezus Hashem, the second Lech Lecha, which is the Chiddush really isn't coming up. And so here we're talking about Avram coming down, revealing, bringing, the idea of Gilui, and there's the benefit for Avram Asher Reka, that he finds himself only when he comes and he changes the world. The second thing is we find, the second abode in Lech Lecha, is Avram has to partially leave Terach. How does a person, what is the method of the elevation from below up? And the Chiddush the Rebbe is going to say is that you don't stop working with your mind. So just like we said before, the lever picks up the bottom of the house. You think that first Avram has to think about everything and eventually get to it. Although Avram did do the process of thinking. When it comes to Lech Lecha, go out there. Start with the Maisa. Start with the action. And the action will elevate eventually the other parts of who you are. But let's see that tomorrow in the continuation of Maamar and how he puts it all together in the beautiful conclusion of Yisalachti V'Seichechem. How a person has, because we have within ourselves sometimes a higher level of Lech Lecha, the elevation, how it's come from above down. We're bringing down godliness, and sometimes we're struggling with basics in life, which is just the Lech Lecha leaving, running away from the bad, and starting with just start doing things right. Forget about what you're holding in your mind. And the idea is that the Lech Lecha is in both. You could have simultaneously both things where you're coming from the highest level down and you're struggling with the most basic issues. But we'll find that out tomorrow in the continuation and conclusion of the Maamar. Thank you much for joining. Have a great rest of your day.